Hey everybody, welcome to the last video of my 3-part youshoku cooking series. So today I'm going to be making chicken katsu. Originally I was going to make tonkatsu, but my father and the rest of my family prefer chicken and they begged me to make chicken instead, so I'm doing chicken katsu instead. But just some history about tonkatsu. Tonkatsu apparently was invented in Japan in 1899. So just before the omurice that I made in the last video. So omurice was also made around the turn of the century, but I believe tonkatsu came just a little bit before that. Interestingly enough, rengate is the restaurant, one of the restaurants that is considered to possibly be the place where omurice originated from, and it also is apparently where tonkatsu was invented. So before tonkatsu, it was actually made with beef, I guess. Katsu, I believe, is the word for, or katsuretsu is like cutlet. So this is just pork cutlet, chicken cutlet is what I'm making today. I wasn't able to find an exact, any specific history about chicken katsu itself. I do know that there are chicken katsu places specifically in Japan. I looked that up. But I'm not sure how long after tonkatsu was a thing that chicken katsu started becoming popular. I don't have any ingredients out because it's a really simple recipe, so I'm just gonna pull out the ingredients as I go through the recipe. The first part is preparing the chicken, cutting it, making sure that it's all even, which you want to do the night before. So I will show that part, and then I already have recorded that part of flattening the meat and making sure it's all even. I did that last night. So that part will play next, and then after that I will get into the actual cooking of the tonkatsu, or chicken katsu. Okay, so the first step of making chicken katsu is making sure that all of your meat is in even thickness. We want to go for about 1/2 inch of thickness. As you can see, like I have a really thin piece right here, but then I have several pieces that are much thicker. These are not going to cook properly. These thicker pieces won't cook properly. And then especially if you have a piece like this, where it's really thin on this side and really thick on this side, the thin part is going to cook much faster than the thicker part, and that's not what you want. You want everything to be fairly even. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this meat tenderizer, meat mallet, whatever you want to call it. If you don't have one of these, you can just take a pot and smash the chicken with your pot. It might take longer. I don't know. I've never really tried that. But we're going to go ahead and start with one of these pieces. Now you can also, like this is really thick, and just trying to hit it with the meat mallet is not ideal. I'm probably going to cut them in half. So I'm going to move these other pieces off of my cutting board so that they're out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and get a knife to cut this in half. So it's actually easier to cut the meat if it's partly frozen. But mine has been defrosting for too long, so we're just going to try it this way. And I'm not cutting it perfectly, but that's alright. So you don't actually have to cut it into different pieces. You could leave it like this if you wanted. I'm going to cut off some of the extra fat, just to get it out of the way. Yeah, so I think I will go ahead and cut this off completely so we just don't have this like weird piece of chicken. I mean, this will still get fried. It'll be a bit strange and weird. It won't be perfectly formed. Now we have this piece, and I'm going to get a tool. So I have this tool right here. This is a bench scraper, or they call it different things. I just call it a bench scraper. And you probably can't see, but it has measurements on it. So I'm just gonna do this. So the meat is already at about 1/2 inch now that I've cut it, but I'm still gonna go ahead and hit it a little bit with the meat mallet just to make sure that it's even. It's already pretty even, but we're just gonna go ahead and do it. Like this piece of meat, it's already good to go now that I cut it and stuff. If you really wanted to, you could just go ahead and start with the really thick piece and use the meat mallet from there, but that will take a really long time and it'll probably be much faster to just cut it like this. So like here's this piece, I'll do this piece as well on camera. This piece is already mostly good, except that you can see that right here it's a bit thicker than right here. So even though this is probably at 1/2 inch up here, because the rest of it is so much thinner, we still want to thin this out so that the whole piece will cook at the same rate, and this will just cook slightly faster than the other pieces that might be at 1/2 inch. Now it's even, just gonna flip it over on the other side and do it. There. So this piece of chicken is done. I'm going to do the rest of chicken off camera just because it will probably take a little while. But yeah, that's the first step. Once you're done with your pieces of chicken and you have them all at the same width, you're gonna sprinkle them with some salt, or if you want to, you can also use miso. I don't have miso, so I'm just going to do salt, and salt it on both sides. You can salt it generously. Once you're done salting, just put it to the side into a gallon-sized bag, because these pieces of chicken need to sit overnight to really let the salt soak in and give it flavor. You don't technically have to do it. You could go ahead and salt them and then go straight into cooking, but you won't get as good results. You won't have as much flavor as you would if you left it overnight. So I'm going to go ahead, do the rest of the chicken, and I'm going to let it sit overnight, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay everybody, so I've got my chicken from last night that was sitting overnight with the salt. So we're going to start with the breading. This is really easy, and you don't need to worry about exact amounts, really. You just need to eyeball the amounts. You just need enough to coat all the chicken. If you feel like you're running out, then you can add some more. So I've got flour here, eggs here that have been whisked together, and then some panko breadcrumbs. And this is about 6 eggs. I have no idea how much breadcrumbs this is. I just poured it in, and this is like 2 cups of flour, I would guess. So yeah, so the step that we're going to take is we're going to, that was my brother. So the first step that we're going to do is grab the chicken breast, and you're going to coat it in the flour. And what you want to actually do is you want to have one hand for wet and one hand for dry. So I'm going to use this hand for dry, my left hand for dry. That is my dishwasher in the background, so just ignore that. But yeah, if you keep one hand for dry and one hand for wet, you are not going to end up with those big clumps of stuff on your fingers. If you use the same hand and you dipping it in the flour, dipping it in the egg, dipping it in the breadcrumbs, you're going to get a big clump of mess on your fingers, and it's going to be much harder to work. I also have some rice cooking in the background in my rice cooker. I showed how to do that in my omurice video, but yeah, I just have enough rice cooking for my family. So I've coated this in flour pretty well. I'm gonna dip it in the egg. Just quickly dip it in the egg, pick it up, let the excess drip off, and then put it in the breadcrumbs. I'm gonna grab some of the other breadcrumbs, and I just messed up. Again, I used the same hand for everything. So this hand is still pretty dry, so I'm probably gonna end up using this hand now for dry and this hand for wet, which is gonna be a little awkward, but we'll make it work. So I'm gonna put all the breadcrumbs on top of the chicken breast, and I'm gonna pat them on to make sure they really get onto the breast. Add some more on this side. Okay, this piece is done. So I'm gonna put it over onto some parchment paper, and then I'm going to fold this parchment paper over. because you want a piece of parchment paper in between each chicken breast. Do not stack them to each other. They will pull the breading off of each other. So I'm going to use my wet hand, grab the chicken breast, drop it in the flour, use this hand, get the flour on top, and just repeat this process until all your pieces of chicken are done. Okay, so I've gotten all of the pieces of chicken breaded. I'm going to wash my hands, clean up my workstation, and get prepared for the frying. I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, so this is my setup to fry. I'm going to go ahead and pour in the oil. This is about 2 cups of oil. I might add more if I need to. And yeah, I probably need to add a little more. So I'm just gonna pour in a bit more. You don't need a bunch of oil. You're not necessarily deep frying the chicken. I just don't want so much that I can't stick my thermometer in here without touching the bottom of the pan, because I want to get a reading of what the oil is and not the temperature of the bottom of the pan. So when my thermometer is in the oil without touching the pan, I'm going to turn on my heat to medium-high, and I'm going to wait for this to get to about 325 to 350 degrees, or until the oil is shimmering. So that will take a little bit. Don't walk out of your kitchen. If you like turn around for a second, that's fine. Do not walk out of your kitchen and leave your oil heating up. That is super dangerous. Okay, so my oil is up to temperature. It's at 350 right now. I turned down my stove top just a little bit because I don't want it to go above 350. It should also drop a bit when I put in the meat, just because the meat is colder than the oil is. So I'm going to grab one of these pieces. Make sure when you put your chicken into the oil, you drop it so it's going this way away from you. You do not want to drop it in so it splashes towards you, because you will burn yourself with hot oil. And we're just going to fry this on this side for 3 to 5 minutes. And I forgot to say, so this is actually the omurice recipe and the souffle pancake recipe. We're both from Just One Cookbook by Nami. She also has a chicken katsu recipe, but I am not using that recipe. I'm using a recipe from Joshua Weissman. I'll link to his video below. He has a really good video where he cooks chicken katsu. The reason I'm using his recipe instead of the Just One Cookbook recipe is because I have cooked his recipe before, so I'm more confident. I know how to do that one. So yeah, that's why I am using his recipe instead. I will also link to the Just One Cookbook chicken katsu recipe as well, if you guys want to check that one out instead. And I also have links for the a couple of the articles where I got information about the history of tonkatsu in the description. Alright, so it's been about 3 to 4 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and flip it. And you also are going to cook it for 3 to 5 minutes on this side as well. So you can see, hopefully you can see, this piece got a bit dark. So I'm going to keep my stovetop on this lower temperature. If you're really good at using oil and judging where your oil is at, you don't really need a candy thermometer. I like to have the candy thermometer, frying thermometer, for checking my temperature. Just make sure that you keep your temperature somewhere between 325 and 350. Okay, so it's been about 3 minutes on this side. I'm going to go ahead and take this piece out just because it's already getting overcooked. And I'm just going to put it on a rack. I have this rack over a cookie sheet, a baking sheet, so that the oil will drip off onto the sheet, but the chicken won't be resting directly on the pan because that will make it get soggy. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and speed up the next part of the video and cook the rest of the chicken. My camera probably won't last the whole time that I'm cooking the chicken, so the next time you'll see me, all the chicken will be cooked. Alright, so I finished frying all of the chicken and it has been dripping. It's dripped off most of the oil, so I can go ahead and stack these pieces a bit. So I'm going to just move all of my pieces to this one rack, and I'm going to put this rack into my oven. My oven has a warm setting, so I'm just going to put it on the warm setting to keep the chicken warm while I prepare the sauce. So I'm going to do that, and I will come back and I'll have all the ingredients ready to make the katsu sauce. Alright, so now I'm going to make the sauce. I'm pretty sure this isn't like what actual tonkatsu sauce is supposed to be. When you look at most tonkatsu sauce recipes, they have like oyster sauce in them and sometimes miso and stuff. This is the sauce that I made the very first time I made chicken katsu. I was like in middle school and I used some WikiHow article. And this is a sauce that article had, and my family really likes the sauce, and they aren't so much fans of things like oyster sauce and stuff. So this is the sauce that I'm going to be making. And then I did try to buy tonkatsu sauce, but they didn't have any at my grocery store. And then also for this sauce that I'm making today, it turns out that I don't have a lot of the ingredients, and I can't really go to the grocery store right now, so we're just gonna make do with what I have. So right here I've got 3/4 cup of sugar, about 3/4 cup of soy sauce, and then about a cup of ketchup. So I'm going to pour in the sugar and the soy sauce, and I'm going to grab a rubber spatula to put this ketchup in. So this recipe does call for Worcestershire sauce. I do not have Worcestershire sauce, and so instead, based on just some random Worcestershire sauce homemade recipes, I'm just going to add a couple of other ingredients. I'm just going to eyeball it. And I'm just going to add some ground ginger because I like how ginger tastes. So I'm going to add some of that. Those last few ingredients, those spices and things that I added, they're all a part of the like Worcestershire recipe, so you don't need to actually add those to your sauce if you have Worcestershire sauce. I will try and put the recipe for the sauce in the description or link to the WikiHow article. But yeah, so I'm just going to heat up this sauce. I'm probably going to turn up the heat just a little bit more. Because when you try to mix it when it's cold, the ketchup really doesn't mix in very well. Alright, so the sauce is starting to boil. I'm going to stir it a bit, and then I'm going to actually just turn off the heat. And as this cools down, it will thicken up. So I'm going to move this to the side. I'm going to go grab my chicken so that I can start preparing it to plate it. Alright, so I've got a piece of chicken here. I'm going to just slice this up. And you can hear how crunchy it is as the knife slices through it. I'm just going to use this soup spoon for the sauce. So I've got the sauce right here. Now, I did read somewhere that apparently part of the reason that the chicken is cut like this is that it can be eaten with chopsticks. I'm not really sure how true that is, if that's the reason that it's cut like this. But either way, I don't have chopsticks because my siblings broke all of them. So I am going to eat this with a fork. So yeah, it tastes great. This isn't the first time I've made it, so it was a lot easier than doing the other recipes. I also think that it's just less complicated than the other recipes that I made in the other parts of the series. But this is a really nice dinner to eat as a family. It does take a while to cook because each piece has to cook for 3 to 5 minutes on each side. If you're just cooking for yourself, then it won't take very long, but for me, I cooked about 10 pieces of chicken, so it took a while. But yeah, it tastes really good. It's crunchy. I really like the sauce. I've never had actual katsu sauce, so I don't know how this tastes compared to that. But yeah, I think it's really good. It's not that hard of a recipe to try, so if you want to cook any of these recipes, I'd probably go with this one. And I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to record another bit talking a bit more about the culture about these foods, and how I felt through this cooking process, and kind of how my views have changed from some of the food like this katsu, which I've made several times before I took this class, and kind of how my thoughts have changed before this class about these foods versus after this class. So I will see you guys soon when I'm talking about that. Okay, so I just wanted to take a chance to talk a bit more about this cooking experience as I've done this series, and kind of how my thoughts about these foods have changed from before this class and before I did the research on them for this project specifically versus afterwards. And so it's really interesting, I think, because like for the chicken katsu, the very first time I made that, I was in middle school, and then I've made it several times since then, and I never really thought about the fact that it may have been inspired by Western food. I always just thought, oh, this is a Japanese dish. It's Japanese. And so it was just really interesting in this class to learn about the difference between washoku and youshoku. And so I don't know, I just had never thought, oh, this was inspired by Western food, and then it became a Japanese food. Because I think you can definitely say now that chicken katsu is Japanese, but that in the past it was inspired by other cultures. And then the same thing with omurice. I always, like, I've seen it in anime, I just thought, oh, that's a really interesting Japanese dish, and I never really thought about the fact that, like, it could have been inspired by other cultures, and it was like a Western food that was incorporated, or that Western food inspired it to be created in Japan. I never really thought about that, so I just thought it was really interesting to learn about those kinds of things in this class and just see like how cultures intermix with each other. And then it was the complete opposite for the pancakes. Like, I've seen these fluffy pancakes all over the place the past couple of years, and I was like, what about that pancake is Japanese? What makes it Japanese? Because I never really thought of a pancake being Japanese. But then I'm pretty sure you could call this Japanese. It's really popular in Japan, and all of these different cafes and things are selling these super fluffy pancakes. And so I just think it's interesting how the cultures are constantly evolving. There's food from thousands and thousands of years ago versus like the omurice and the tonkatsu from like around 200 years ago, which is relatively modern in terms of all history. And then the pancake, which just became popular within like the last 5 to 10 years. And so I just think it's interesting how like food and all other parts of cultures are just constantly intermingling with each other and just evolving. And so you can never just at one point say, oh, this is this culture and that's that. It's always going to be changing. Cultures are always going to be mixing with each other. And I think that's great, because then we get awesome dishes like omurice, tonkatsu, and the souffle pancakes. And all other things of like culture, as cultures mix together and new ideas are created. I just think that's really awesome. And I really enjoyed, I guess, broadening my views of what Japanese culture is during this class. So this is officially the end of my 3-part youshoku cooking series. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the videos. I know they're a bit long, but I hope you guys enjoyed them. And yeah, bye.